Did you know that parents rank financial literacy as the #1 most difficult life skill to teach? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app for families. With Greenlight, you can send money to kids quickly, set up chores, automate allowance, and keep an eye on your kids' spending with real-time notifications. Kids learn to earn, save, and spend wisely, and parents can rest easy knowing their kids are learning about money with guardrails in place. Try Greenlight risk-free today at greenlight.com/Wondery.
This is a mini meditation guided by Bombas. Repeat after me. I'm comfy. I'm cozy. I have 0 blisters on my toes. And that's because I wear Bombas, the softest socks, underwear, and t-shirts that give back. One purchased equals one donated. Now go to bombas.com/Wondery and use code WONDERY for 20% off your first purchase. That's bombas.com/Wondery and use code WONDERY at checkout.
Globally, humans are facing massive problems that are widely ignored by governments and the media.
Like personal space invaders.
I've had it with these couples that sit on the same side of the booth.
Yak mouths.
Stupid stick figure bumper stickers.
Almond milk. You cannot milk an almond.
Hi, I'm Jennifer.
And I'm Angie.
We call her Pumps, and we're the hosts of I've Had It. Pumps, tell the listener where they can find us.
Apple, Spotify, Amazon, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Nailed it.
See you next Tuesday.
I'm Brett.
And I'm Alice.
And we are the Prosecutors. Today on the Prosecutors, on a rainy Dublin night in December 2000, Trevor Deely left his Christmas work party and swung by the office. It was there he met the man in black. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of The Prosecutors. I'm Brett, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Alice.
Hi, Brett. You know, I will listen to your wonderfully accented pronunciation of other countries' words any day. I have no idea what that meant, but it sounded beautiful.
Well, that's appropriate, because supposedly that is Gaelic for beautiful, which you are, Alice. Always beautiful. A beautiful soul and a beautiful person.
Well, that's very kind of you. Gaelic is like, man, I don't think I have the right muscles in my throat to do Gaelic words, so I'm impressed.
Yeah, it's true. It is a difficult language, a beautiful language. If you've ever been to Ireland and you've been able to hear it, you know, it's always funny. I enjoy driving around other countries and listening to their radio stations in their native languages, and it's always fun in Ireland to do that, even though I don't understand anything. It's just fun to do.
I've never been to Ireland, but I hear it's beautiful. I hear it's just gorgeous.
Our listeners in Ireland are going to have to do something about that. We're going to have to
love to
do
go
a
to
special
Ireland.
trip.
I will go there in a heartbeat, that's for sure.
Challenge is issued. I hope you're listening in Dublin and Belfast and everywhere in between to that offer by Alice to come to Ireland. So we expect to hear something from you guys soon. And the reason we're talking about Ireland is because we are going to Ireland for a case today. Alice, have we done an Irish case yet?
I don't think so.
I don't think we have either. We did one in Scotland.
Not Ireland,
and we've done
though.
Australian ones.
That's right.
But I think this is our first Irish case. And this is a good one. This is one of my favorite true crime cases out there. It's not super covered. I mean, there are people who cover it, but one of my favorite, one of the most mysterious cases, one of the most enigmatic cases that you're going to hear, the disappearance of Trevor Deely. Alice has never been to Ireland. I have. I actually went to Ireland on my honeymoon. We flew to England and we drove to Wales, and then we took a ferry from Wales to Dublin. And then we were so tired by the time we got to Dublin that we couldn't go to sleep. So we ended up just going to a bar in the middle of the night and drinking Guinness until, I don't think it closed, because I'm not sure when the bars actually closed.
That sounds like the most Irish thing to do, right? To go drink Guinness in the middle of the night when maybe bars in America would be closed.
Yeah, but it was like a bar playing Bon Jovi. You know, they had a band singing all American songs. So it wasn't quite the tourist experience that I wanted, but it probably was more authentic. It was more authentically Irish than if they'd have been playing, you know, like Irish Rebel songs or something like that.
Well, my husband lived in Ireland before we met, and so he talks about how beautiful it is all the time. My only point of reference for Ireland is a fantastic show that you actually recommended to me, Dairy Girls, which is like an amazing show. That's about the extent of my knowledge of Ireland. So we're going to have to lean on your expertise.
We're going to talk about Derry at some point, actually, or Londonderry, as some people call it. Not to get into internecine warfare here, but Ireland's an amazing country. It's a beautiful country. If you've never been to Ireland, it's one of my favorite places in the world. Been to a lot of places. Ireland is right up there at the top. Ireland's one of those places that I can go and just go to some small town and hang out. You don't have to do anything. It's just a gorgeous town with gorgeous people. Just a huge fan of Ireland. So we're really happy to do this case. And, you know, I mean, I don't know. We've given you the synopsis already. Hopefully that's drawn you in a little bit so that you survived this 5 or 6 minutes of us gushing about how awesome Ireland is, so we can dive into this case. Probably going to take a couple episodes to do this one. There's not a ton of evidence, but there's a great story and there are great theories. So with that, Alice, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you. Well, first we have to thank the host of Shark Files podcast, a listener from Ireland, who not only brought this case to our attention, but provided the research, an awesome PowerPoint presentation, and descriptions of various theories. I remember reading this email and I was like, we have to cover this case. It was fascinating. And so truly, we've said this before, thank you to all of you who provide us with this type of research, because without that type of kind of boots on the ground research, because we're not an investigative podcast, we have, you know, full-time jobs here and families, we really couldn't have done cases like this without people like Shark Files. So they made it so easy for us to do this case. So please check out Shark Files podcast, which is a narrative pod that examines notable shark encounters around the world. And it's been called the Case Files of Shark Encounters. So you know it's good. And I just love that. They do shark cases. They bring us like one of the coolest disappearance cases.
I know. Thank you so much to them. I tried to hire them to do research for us. It was so good. And they were like, I'm kind of busy with my own thing. So unfortunately, we'll just have to enjoy the Shark Files podcast. So I hope you guys will check that out if you like. It's like Shark Week for your ears.
It's so cool.
Can you get any better than that?
I can't wait. Well, I might give my kids nightmares, but they're like really into sharks right now. So this will be perfect for us. Now, with that all said, so thank you, Shark Files. Now, Trevor Deely was in many ways an unremarkable guy. 22 years old, Trevor worked for the Bank of Ireland Asset Management Centre as an IT worker. He was beloved by the other 9 people on his team, and his bosses would describe him as almost the perfect employee. He was well-liked, he was eager to learn, friendly, ambitious, and he lived like most 22-year-olds. He had a small apartment about a mile from his workplace, and he was often out socializing with friends. There was really nothing about him that would tend to make you think he'd be the victim of a sensational crime. But then, on December 7th, 2000, Trevor met the man in black and vanished into thin air.
And it's funny, there's all these cases, all these great true crime cases, they always start with just an ordinary person. Sometimes people have these crazy conspiracy theories that somebody's really a spy or an agent for the DEA or some sort of informant. Like you hear that about cases like Maura Murray. But in reality, these are just normal people and something horrible and extraordinary happens to them. And that's what you have with Trevor and his case. You may not have heard about it if you're listening to us in the United States, but this case is easily one of the most famous cases in Ireland. One of the reasons for that is there is video. We've talked about this before. Whenever you have video or a photograph, there is something about it that captures you because you're seeing the lead up to a crime and you just feel like, how is it possible that we have this video and yet we cannot figure this out? And that's the situation we have in this case. So as Alice said, this all goes down on December 7th, but we're actually going to back up a little bit into November. And we're going to talk about something that probably to most of you seems entirely unrelated, but just know there are people out there, conspiracy theorists out there, who think this is really significant. So let's talk about it for a little while. And that is Trevor's trip to Alaska. And Alice recently flew to Alaska from the United States. I cannot imagine the hassle that it is to get from Ireland to Alaska. That takes some real commitment.
Is that like just directly across the globe from each other? My geography is not fantastic right now, but I will say from the east coast of the United States to get to Alaska took 19 hours door to door.
I'm just going to go out on a limb and say there's not a direct flight from Dublin to Anchorage.
Probably
so
not.
He probably took the same trip you did, but he had to do it starting from Ireland. So he had to fly into the United States first and then go through the hassle of getting there. But he does this. And why does Trevor, a 22-year-old guy from Ireland, go to Alaska of all places? Well, what would make a 22-year-old man go to Alaska? And the answer is, everybody say it with me, a girl.
A girl,
and
of course.
A girl. It's always a girl. And this is, I'm just telling you, this is like the ultimate romantic gesture by Trevor, flying to Alaska. Never been to Alaska. Would love to go to Alaska. I'm not putting Alaska down. It's just really hard to get to Alaska. But he did this. He'd actually met a girl the summer before. She had been in Dublin. She was from Alaska originally. They had hit it off. They had gone on a few dates. A little unclear how close their relationship was. You read different things about it. But in any event, it was enough that he wanted to go see her. Now, Trevor, unfortunately, ignored some very clear signals from her that while she enjoyed meeting him and he seemed like a cool guy, she didn't necessarily want him coming all the way out to Alaska. And she had told him, if you come to Alaska, I'm going to be pretty busy, so I don't know if I'll be able to hang out with you. But apparently, he decided to go to Alaska anyway. And when he shows up on her door, she's not exactly happy to see him. Apparently, this was a pretty rough thing for Trevor. He was pretty disappointed. He kind of made the best of it, but in the end, he is going to return home disappointed. Now, why is this important? As we've said, Trevor is going to disappear at some point. And as we've talked about with every disappearance, everything that happens to you around the time you disappear is going to be important. We had somebody on the gallery who posted something pretty funny about us analyzing their life.
That was
the little things that they do. It was hilarious.
That was the greatest post of all time. I laughed so hard.
But it's true. If that person disappeared, that's exactly what we'd be doing. And we'd be looking at all this stuff. And I think about this all the time. Like every time I'm going somewhere and for some reason I have to take a detour, I always think to myself, man, if I die on the side of this road, people are going to be like, why did he take this way? This was not the most direct route. Normally, he would just go down the interstate. There must have been some deep reason for it. In reality, it's just some stupid reason I had to take a detour. And this is kind of similar. Trevor's going to disappear. He had just been to Alaska. The girl he went to see, it wasn't exactly great. And so there are people who actually believe that some assassin followed him from Alaska or some angry boyfriend followed him from Alaska. Let me just go ahead and tell you, ain't nobody following somebody from Alaska to Ireland. I mean, it would take a lot. It would take a lot for that to happen because the same trip Trevor had to take, the same trip Alice had to take, this person would have to take. They're not going to do that. They're going to be like, he's in Ireland. Hold a grudge. If he ever comes back, I'll, hit him with a beer bottle. But I'm not going all the way to Alaska, or I'm not going all the way to Ireland to deal with this. So while this happened, and while shortly thereafter Trevor disappeared, I don't think this has anything to do with his disappearance. The Irish police, the Garda, I've heard it pronounced the Gardaí, but I think it looks like Garda to me, so I'm going with Garda. They actually went to Alaska to check this out.
Do you think they just wanted to take a trip, by the way?
If they were going to Hawaii or just like New York, some short trip, even Hawaii would be too far. Some short trip, yes. But like I said, I would love to go to Alaska. Alaska's beautiful. It's just so hard to get to. So I'm going to go with they actually had to do this, but they have ruled this out. And so as far as I'm concerned, this is the last time we have to talk about Alaska. We can move on from there, move into December and into the night that Trevor disappeared. So let's get into December. So Tuesday, December 5th, 2000, Trevor actually returns from Alaska and to his job at the Bank of Ireland Asset Management Center. That must have been some jet lag because there's a long way to go. But he returns to his job, and it's a pretty good time to come back because it's right around when the Christmas break is about to start. And in fact, the office Christmas party is coming up. And let me just tell you, I have been to some Christmas parties, office Christmas parties. They're usually pretty boring. They're usually pretty short. the Bank of Ireland Asset Management Center. These people knew how to put on a party. And on Thursday, December 7th, this party is going to happen. So at around 4 p.m., Trevor finishes up his work at his office. At 4 o'clock, Trevor, he finishes up his work at the office. He swings by his dad's nearby office where he's had some contact lenses delivered. He picks them up. Everything's fine. By 4:45, he is home at his apartment.
And, this all sounds so just mundane, right? Working, picking up contact lenses. That's important, by the way, because remember, we've already said this. He's doing actions that indicate that he's thinking about normal day things, right? If you're thinking about, say, running away or ending your life, you may not be doing kind of these mundane tasks for the everyday. And that's why this is interesting. At 7 p.m. that night, Trevor meets some friends at Copper Face Jack's on Harcourt Street for some pregame action. He spends about 2 hours there with friends. It's a pretty long pregame, but I think that just is because of my age, not because of anything Trevor's doing. He's 22. 2-hour pregame, I guess, is totally normal. And after that pregame at 9 p.m., he goes to the staff party, which is at the Hilton. And the company had hired a band and provided dinner and drinks for their workers. Brett, this is like, I've never had a company party be this nice. But a whole band, it sounds like kind of like a wedding. But a really fun evening. And of course, he's showing up after, getting drinks with friends for the past 2 hours. And that's where he spends the night, is hanging out at this company party.
And let me just say this. Not only is this party nice, and the nicest Christmas party I've ever been to was when I was at a law firm before the crash, and they like to spend money like it was going out of style. It was a nice party. Wasn't this nice? It didn't go this long. This party is like a work day. It's going to go on for forever. And as Alice pointed out, Trevor's already spent a couple hours drinking, so he is well into the alcohol by the time we reach sort of the end of this story.
Sure. So, party kind of starts for him around 7. He gets to the party at 9 o'clock, and he's there for about 3.5 hours. He's there past midnight, and again, with kind of all that food and drink and a band, that's not too surprising that he's there to that hour. Now, we're just eking past the midnight hour, so now we're technically into Friday, December 8th, 2000. At 12:28 a.m., CCTV ATM near the Hilton catches Trevor walking out and then taking a small amount of cash from the ATM. He then goes back into the party. Probably, Occam's razor, it was maybe a cash bar at this point. Maybe it was an open bar before, or maybe it was a cash bar and he'd run out of money at that point and was just coming out to get some money to go back into the bar. I don't know that if that's what happened, but kind of fits the narrative. Why would you get money and go right back in? He stays and continues at this epic company party. And at 2:30 a.m. or sometime after 2, the party's finally winding down. Again, this is man, I want to work at this company. This sounds like a fun party. And Trevor, who has been drinking now for, 7 hours at this point, decides to go to the after party, which is being held at Buck Whaley's on Leeson's Street, which is about just a 15-minute walk away. And this, again, sounds pretty normal. The party's been going well. As the band shuts down, everyone's, probably a little overserved. Let's keep the party going. Let's go to another bar.
And I think even in Ireland, and everybody knows the stereotypes of Ireland, you got to be 22 to be doing this. I know I could not. I would just be dead. I would be dead in so many different ways by this point. So impressive work, Trevor.
Indeed.
Wherever you are. This is crazy. When did he start again? He started at 7 o'clock.
7.
And it's now 2:30. How many hours is that?
That's a lot of
I'm not
things.
good at
7,
math.
8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 7.5 hours at this point.
That's 7.5 hours. That's longer than he was at work.
That's
He's
longer
been
than
drinking.
I sleep at night.
I know. And he's not done yet. And we keep giving you guys these street names. We don't know where any of this stuff is. But those of you who are listening in Ireland, if somehow you miss this story, which I don't know how that's possible, I'm giving you some points of reference. So, hey, who knows? Maybe you saw something.
Indeed, yes. Now, at 3:05 a.m., while Trevor's enjoying a few last drinks, the man in black arrives at the Bank of Ireland Asset Management Center where Trevor works. He is a well-built male wearing a dark jacket, dark trousers, and a dark hat. A security camera, and we'll call it camera 1, catches his arrival. This man in black turns away from the camera and leans against a pillar, facing a canal that runs in front of the building. He is in a bit of an alcove, but not under much cover, and he has no umbrella, despite the fact that at this point in the night, it is pouring rain with gusting winds. For half an hour, that's where he stands, kind of just unmoving, uncovered, in the midst of this rainstorm.
And look, I think when you initially hear this, your thought is, maybe he's really drunk. It is 3 o'clock in the morning. Obviously, there have been a lot of people who've been drinking a lot that night. It's pouring down rain. It's gusting wind. It's December. Ireland obviously doesn't get quite as cold as some other places, particularly at that latitude, but nevertheless, this is not a comfortable place to be. And you kind of feel like the only person who could be enduring this is one of two people. Either someone who is drunk or someone who is there with a purpose. And the more we talk about this, the less it seems like this is a drunk person and more like it seems like they're there with a purpose. So the man in black, he is there at the Ireland Asset Management Center, Bank of Ireland, which is where Trevor just so happens to work. And sure enough, these two people are going to run into each other. This is 3:05 a.m. For 30 minutes, he stands there. At about 3:30, Trevor finally leaves Buck Whaley's. By now, it is raining heavily, and he has had a lot to drink, but he doesn't have an umbrella. You might think, well, that's not that big a deal. Just grab a cab. But unfortunately, and this is one of those cases, we've talked about these cases before, where the number of things that had to happen for something bad to occur are almost astronomical, that they all came together, and it's almost creepy. This is one of them. He couldn't just go home because the taxi drivers in Dublin just so happened to be on a strike at that time. So there were no taxis, and this is before the age of Uber. So really, he has two choices. He can either stay where he is or he can walk home. The problem is the walk is over a mile, and he doesn't have an umbrella. So he's going to be soaking wet by the time he gets home, and he decides rather than walk the mile home in the pouring rain and the gusting wind, he will just go to his job, which is pretty close by, pick up an umbrella, and then turn around and head back home. So that's about 3:30. At 3:33 and 30 seconds, and we know this because we have the CCTV footage, the man in black gets a phone call. It lasts for approximately 15 seconds. After it's over, he hangs up and he steps out from this slight alcove, from away from this pillar that he's been standing at for 30 minutes at the Bank of Ireland Asset Management Center. And he faces towards Leeson Street, standing sort of on the sidewalk, looking down this street in the direction that Trevor is coming from. Just want to point out again, Trevor leaves at 3:30. The man in black gets the phone call at 3:33. He is now looking down the road in the direction that Trevor will be coming from. At 3:34 and 11 seconds, so 40-something seconds after he hangs up, Trevor appears on camera 1. Camera 1 is the camera that we have seen the man in black on from this point. As Alice said, it's a security camera at the Bank of Ireland Asset Management Center. So he is walking into the frame of this camera, and he appears to be on the phone, though that's a little unclear. Obviously, at some point, the police are going to pull his cell phone records. They are not public. So there's still some question about exactly what he was doing when he was on the phone. But if you look at the video, it looks like he's talking on the phone. And he is coming down Leeson Street, and he is now heading straight towards the man in black, who was looking down the street in Trevor's direction. He walks up to the man in black and past him. There's no acknowledgement between them. Trevor keeps going as if he's just passing a stranger. At 3:34 and 19 seconds, so 8 seconds after he comes into the view of camera 1, Trevor leaves camera 1. At 3:34 and 35 seconds, so about 15 seconds later, the man in black, who after Trevor passes him, does not initially move, turns and follows Trevor around the corner and out of the view of camera one. It is, and one of the questions you're going to have to ask yourself as you're listening to this story, is all this random? Is it just a coincidence that the man in black is there? Is it just a coincidence that he's looking down the street in the direction of Trevor? Is it just a coincidence that after Trevor passes him, he turns and follows? And we have yet more coincidences to come. Let's fast forward to 3:34 and 52 seconds, so about 17 seconds after the man in black turns, follows Trevor, and leaves camera one. Now, there is a second security camera that faces a back gate at the Bank of Ireland Asset Management Center. This back gate is often used by the staff to come and go from the building, and it is the gate that Trevor is heading towards. So we'll call this camera 2. So both Trevor and the man in black are now headed towards that camera's view. Now, given that Trevor left camera 1's coverage 17 seconds before the man in black turned and followed, you would expect Trevor to enter camera 2's coverage first. But he doesn't. Instead, it is the man in black who appears on camera 2 first. But hold your horses if you think something bad happened in between the two cameras, because Trevor isn't far behind. At 3:35 and 1 second, so 9 seconds later, he appears on camera 2. So it takes Trevor about 7 seconds to get from appearing in camera 2 to the back gate. So that will be 3:35 and 8 seconds. For the next 17 seconds, a couple things happen. Trevor arrives at the back gate, and for the first time that we know of, because obviously we don't see their interaction when they're not in the camera, the man in black steps up to Trevor and speaks with him. We will post a link to all these videos on the website. If you're watching on YouTube, you're probably seeing these videos, but you should check them out and watch them. So the man in black, he steps up to Trevor and he appears to speak with him. They talk for about 17 seconds. While they're doing this, Trevor is getting his keys out of his pocket. After they speak, the man in black turns his back to Trevor. So he's no longer facing Trevor. He's now facing out into the street. While Trevor, now he's now got his keys out. Now he's messing with the gate, attempting to open it.
3:35 and 47 seconds, Trevor opens the gate and the man in black glances over his shoulder at Trevor. But if you think this is some like horror film, he doesn't follow him. Instead, he actually turns back and stands right there where he was before the gate was open. At 3:37 and 4 seconds, at least until about 3:37 and 40 seconds, so like 36 seconds, two men who work with Trevor arrive at the gate, and they appear to be very drunk and can offer no information whatsoever about the man in black who's standing there. At some point, these men go on, and the man in black walks out of the view of the cameras.
Angi's List is now Angi, and they've made it easier than ever to get all your home projects done right. I mean, Brett, today I was trying to find an electrician to just work on odds and ends around the house, really lights that have stopped working that I've never gotten around to because it's so hard to find good people to do work around the house. Not anymore because of Angi. Angi has over 20 years of home service experience, and they've combined it with new tools to simplify the whole process. Just bring them your project online or with the Angi app. Answer a few questions, and Angi can handle the rest from start to finish, or help you see ratings and reviews, compare quotes from local pros, and connect instantly.
And all of you out there know, if you own a home, whether it was built last year or whether it's a 100-year house like mine, things are always breaking, and you always need someone to do work. And that's where Angi comes in. It means you can cross things off your to-do list in just a few taps, because whether it's routine maintenance or a dream remodel, Angi is here to make it easy. So get your next project done with the help of a pro from Angi. Download the free Angi mobile app today or visit Angi.com. That's ANGI.com. Angi.com. Alice, I don't know if you're like me, but I really hate going to the doctor. And worse than going to the doctor is trying to find one that you can trust. And that's where ZocDoc comes in. If you've been stewing about a health problem, you're resorting to texting your group chat to get your friends' opinions. I got to tell you, you're extremely unlikely to find a quality medical advice in a group chat, but you can find it from a doctor on ZocDoc. There are thousands of medical professionals on ZocDoc there to help you. They listen like a friend and give you the expert care you need.
ZocDoc is the only free app that lets you find and book doctors who are patient-reviewed, take your insurance, are available when you need them, and treat almost every condition under the sun. Brett, it's so wonderful that there's no more doctor roulette or scouring the internet for questionable reviews. With ZocDoc, you have a trusted guide to connect you to your favorite doctor you haven't met yet. Millions of people use ZocDoc's free app to find and book a doctor in their neighborhood who is a patient reviewed and fit their needs and schedule just right. I know this is so helpful for me now with 3 kids who are constantly getting sick. We're always looking for doctors, and ZocDoc makes the process so easy. Go to ZocDoc.com/prosecutors and download the ZocDoc app for free. Then find and book a top-rated doctor today. Many are available within 24 hours. That's ZocDoc.com/prosecutors. ZocDoc.com/prosecutors. Brett, now that I have a family of 5 and 2 very hungry growing boys, it seems like I am always going to the store to buy meat for these growing boys. Not anymore though, now with the awesomeness of ButcherBox that gets amazing quality meats delivered right to your doorstep. ButcherBox has options and deals that are so much better than what I find at my local grocery store. And I just feel good because I know that they are the highest quality of meats and seafood that you can trust because it's 100% grass-fed beef, free-range organic chicken, pork-raised, crate-free, and wild-caught seafood. And I also can rest easy feeding this to my family because I know it's humanely raised. There's no antibiotics or added hormones.
Yeah, listen, doing the keto thing, I buy a lot of meat, and I got to tell you, it gets really expensive. And you always wonder, is this high quality stuff or am I cutting corners? Well, I got to tell you, there's incredible value with ButcherBox. You get a variety of high quality cuts at an amazing value, and it is so convenient. It is delivered right to your doorstep, and it is free shipping always. You guys need to check this out. ButcherBox is giving our listeners a special deal. Sign up today using code PROSECUTE to receive ground beef for a year, plus $20 off your first order. That's 2 pounds of ground beef free in every box for a year, plus $20 off your first order when you sign up at butcherbox.com/prosecute and use code prosecute. Find out why it's so amazing. Go to butcherbox.com/prosecute and use code prosecute.
The Prosecutors Podcast is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Most of you listening right now are probably multitasking. Yep, while you're listening to us talk, you're probably also driving, cleaning, exercising, or maybe even grocery shopping. But if you're not in some kind of moving vehicle, there's something else you can be doing right now. Getting an auto quote from Progressive Insurance. It's easy and you could save money by doing it right from your phone. Drivers who save by switching to Progressive save nearly $700 on average, and auto customers qualify for an average of 7 discounts. Discounts for having multiple vehicles on your policy, being a homeowner, and more.
So just like your favorite podcast, Progressive will be with you 24/7, 365 days a year, so you're protected no matter what. Multitask right now. Quote your car insurance at Progressive.com to join the over 29 million drivers who trust Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month saving of $698 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2021 and May 2022. Potential savings will vary. Discounts not available in all states and situations.
And it's a little unclear exactly what these men are doing. They work with Trevor. They are totally blitzed. They are far more drunk than Trevor is. And this is something about this gate. So Trevor has a key to the gate. These men probably had a key to the gate, but maybe they didn't, or maybe they had forgotten it. Or it's possible they didn't know they could get in because, as we're going to talk about a good bit in this case, ordinarily there was a chain on this gate, and the employees couldn't actually open that chain. But the chain was off because there had been a delivery that had arrived at that gate somewhat earlier, and the security guard had come out and taken the chain off, and he never put it back on. And that allowed Trevor to go through. These men may not have realized that, and they may have been standing there hoping that the security guard's going to come out. But it's the middle of the night. It's pouring down rain. I'm sure the security guard was like, sorry, guys, if you can't figure out how to get in, you're just not going to get in. And so eventually they just sort of wander off. They go about their business. The man in black is standing there the whole time. Police talk to these guys. They don't remember anything. And at some point after they leave, the man in black sort of wanders off as well. And he is now out of the view of the camera. We don't know where he went. There's no camera footage of him. But he is no longer in camera 2's view.
And Trevor doesn't just go into the building, grab his umbrella, and leave. He's actually in there for about half an hour. So from 3:36 and 1 second a.m. until 4:01:57 seconds, Trevor is in the building. Now, while he's in there, he does grab his bank-branded umbrella, but he doesn't leave. Instead, he sees Carl Pender, who is working the night shift. Trevor suggests they make a cup of coffee, which they do, and Carl was working, and Trevor's 2 roommates were away, so neither of them really had anywhere to go. I mean, it is like 4 a.m., but, you know, they see each other, why not? Carl said that while Trevor had obviously been drinking, he wasn't drunk. And after they hung out for a while, Trevor checked his emails and said goodnight and headed out. So, I mean, he was obviously coherent enough to have this conversation with Carl, even hang out for a while, check his emails, you know, do kind of the normal things you do. And if anything, he may have sobered up from, you know, that very rainy, gusty walk in the rain to this building. And then he stays in the building for another half hour. And I think all he's drinking, if anything, is coffee, not more alcohol.
And ordinarily, I would not put much stock into what someone says about whether someone else is drunk. We've talked about this before, but Carl is in a different situation. He was not at the party. He is not drunk. He is working. So he's stone sober. And maybe Trevor holds his alcohol pretty well. He has been drinking for a long time. But as Alice said, he may have sobered up a little bit. He's drinking some coffee. It does not seem like he is super drunk. This is going to be important because when we talk about what happened to Trevor, his state of mind matters. Whether or not he can, you know, put a foot in front of another matters. And he's able for 30 minutes to sit with Carl, hold a conversation, drink some coffee, grab his umbrella, check his email, and then head out. So, yes, is he drunk? Of course he is. Should he be driving a car? Absolutely not. But is he necessarily going to, say, fall over a bridge while he's crossing it? I don't know. It seems like this is a big strike against any theory that this is something that whatever happened to Trevor is related to his drinking.
Another thing about this, it didn't seem like Trevor was in any sort of a hurry to go anywhere. So if someone was waiting for him, you would think he would just come in, do his business, maybe say hi to Carl, but not offer to have a cup of coffee and hang out and mention that his roommates were gone and so he didn't have anywhere to be. He clearly was just, maybe he was dawdling to wait until the rain had died down before he had to walk the mile home. But this doesn't indicate any sort of rush to get out of the building or even to get home. So after being there for about half an hour at 4:02 a.m., Trevor appears again on camera 2. Remember the camera on the back gate where the employees could come in. The man in black is not on camera. At 4:03 and 12 seconds to 4:14 and 22 seconds, Trevor walks from camera 2 to a third camera. Now, camera 3 is a bank camera on the wall of the bank's outside. This walk should only have taken about 7 minutes, but as you can tell from the time, it actually took him about 11 minutes, and it's unclear why Trevor was delayed. He was a smoker, so it's possible he took out a cigarette, smoked a cigarette, stopped to take a call. It's also possible that camera 3's clock was just off. The camera's times may not have been synced with each other. Trevor has his umbrella up and appears to be heading home. This was not the most direct route he could take, adding about 5 minutes to the walk.
And there are a couple things about this I think are interesting. One is this timing thing. We live and die by the clock in these cases, particularly when the timeline matters a lot. And a lot of times, people will really fixate on the timeline. And you think back to Maura Murray. We had that super controversial thing where we said the timeline doesn't matter. And to some extent that is true. And to some extent, obviously, it does. The timeline matters in this case, but not a whole lot, particularly this part. And this was before digital clocks that all had the same time. I can't tell you how often we look at surveillance camera and the clock is completely wrong. Defense attorneys will occasionally try and grab onto that. I mean, it doesn't really mean anything, but it kind of confuses the jury. So it's like, oh, so you said this happened at midnight, but it says 10 a.m. You know, how can we know what time it is or whatever? So it is something that happens. But back then, these were analog clocks. So that means someone had to set this clock by hand in order for it to work. The chances that this clock is a little off, pretty good. This is something people focus on because, once again, Trevor's going to disappear. Spoiler alert, that's why we're doing the case. He's going to disappear. And if in those 4 minutes he ran into the wrong person, that could matter. This is described as a not good area. I always think it's funny when people in other countries describe parts of their cities or their towns as not good areas, because I love the United States, but it's just, there's a lot of really dangerous places in our fair country. And I've got to think that the most dangerous place in Dublin as compared to like a medium dangerous place in the average American city probably don't compare. I know I'm going to get a lot of angry Irish people who are going to say that's not true, but just look at our gun crime and you'll see. But people say this was a not safe area. It was a place where you could buy drugs, and maybe if you wanted to hire a sex worker, this was the kind of place to do it. And there would be pimps around. And so if Trevor runs afoul of the wrong person in these extra 4 minutes, maybe that's what eventually leads to his demise. Maybe it does. I think it is more likely that the camera's just slightly off, even if it's not off the entirety of this time. Trevor, he has been drinking. He may be walking a little bit slower than someone who's timing this would do. So this doesn't seem like that big a deal to me. Now, I will say this. The fact he's not taking the most direct route is a little strange to me, if only because it's pouring rain and blowing wind.
And 4 a.m.
And 4 a.m. This is not the time you want to spend outside enjoying a nice walk by the Liffey or whatever.
That is very strange to me, yeah. Because, I know based on his conversation with Carl, he's not in any rush to get home, but that's because he was in a warm, dry place, his office, when he had that conversation. But once you're in the elements, it's better to probably be inside than outside in the elements. So not only is he potentially dawdling in this, if the cameras are properly synced, he's also not going the most direct route.
That's only 5 minutes. I don't want to act like it's a huge deal.
It's not a huge deal. It is not a huge deal. But I have walked home probably way too many nights, like in college or, when I was younger, and I would definitely cut through fields or parking lots to cut short a nighttime walk, because who cares? There's no cars driving there. No one's out and about, and I just want to get home. So this kind of cuts against what you typically do. At 4:06, so this is the time it takes for him to walk from camera 2 to 3. So this is at a time that Trevor is off camera. That's when his last phone activity occurs. At this time, Trevor calls his best friend Glenn and leaves a message. He says, "Hey Glenn, I've missed you there. Just on my way home, all going good. I'll talk to you tomorrow." Now, maybe this is totally normal. He's just trying to kill time. I often try to make calls when I'm in the car or, getting from point A to point B. But it is like 4 a.m. that he's calling his best friend. But based on his very short message, he doesn't seem panicked. He doesn't sound particularly drunk. He doesn't seem to be calling about any sort of life matter, like, hey, I've had a really rough day, or I really want to catch up with you. A lot's been going on. It seems to be just a check-in call, a truly check-in call. And notice how he ends it. I'll talk to you tomorrow. At least in the message, there's the planning of there will be a tomorrow, and that will be a given.
Now, let me say, I think this could be a really significant call. And the reason for that is, I don't know about you guys, but I'm socially awkward. And so there are times when I'm in sort of a socially awkward situation where I will whip out my phone and act like I'm talking on my phone to avoid the social awkwardness. I'm sure no one else ever does that. But if, let's say I was in a situation where someone was following me, just imagine that were happening. Someone's following me, or I think someone is following me, or I'm worried someone's following me. Maybe I would do something like make a call to my best friend, kind of hoping they'll pick up so I can talk to them. And when they don't pick up, I just leave a message because I don't want them to be worried. And I might want the person who's following me to think I just talked to someone. Now, I'm not going to say anything on that message because I'm going to look like a moron when I make it home and go to bed and wake up the next morning. They're like, Trevor, are you okay? You left that crazy message and I was really worried about you. So I'm not going to do that. I would leave a normal message. But I could imagine 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm not typically going to call someone. I don't care how good a friend they are. The chances of me calling them are slim and none. Glenn was asleep at the time, which is typically what people do at 4 o'clock in the morning, but Trevor calls him anyway. This is pure speculation. We can't know what was going on in Trevor's mind, and he doesn't leave any concrete evidence of what was going on in his mind when he leaves this phone call. But to me, this seems like a possible action of someone who's feeling a little uncomfortable and wants to remind maybe someone around him, I'm not alone. I have my cell phone. I've just talked to a friend. I mean, to me, that seems like the kind of thing someone could do.
And it's kind of early in the walk between camera 2 and camera 3 when he's off camera. So, we don't see him when he leaves this message. But yeah, I mean, something's happening in that time period, and that very well could be the case. We just don't have any video of it. At 4:14, 33 seconds, Trevor's shadow leaves camera 3 now. At 4:14, 52 seconds, so like 20 seconds later, a man dressed all in black appears on camera 3, where Trevor just left, following Trevor at a fast clip. There are some who don't believe this is the original man in black from earlier in the night, but honestly, look at it yourself. The resemblance is striking, albeit the camera quality is kind of poor. It seems like quite a coincidence if it's not the same man, because it is the middle of the night, and the man in black previously did have an interaction with Trevor in this very vicinity. Some time has passed, but again, it's not like this is a bustling part of town at this hour.
And my understanding is that the police have constantly attempted to upgrade the quality of this camera footage. We have this footage because Trevor's family sort of immediately went into action when they realized he was missing and canvassed the area and got all the footage they could from these CCTV cameras that would have been deleted, and we're able to save it. So it's great work on their part. His family has never given up looking for him to this day. But my understanding is the police have continued to work on this, have continued to refine this using the latest technology, and the clearer it gets, the more it seems like this man is the man in black. I wish we could say that definitively, because if we could say it definitively, then I think a lot of our questions are answered. Maybe not the ultimate question, but certainly some big ones. We can't say it definitively, but as Alice said, quite a coincidence.
Quite a coincidence. After this man in black in this particular clip and Trevor leave camera 3's field of view, neither are seen on any other cameras that we have access to. At 4:14, 54 seconds, so 2 seconds after that man in black appears on camera 3, a shadow believed to be Trevor can be seen crossing the road. Now, remember what Brett said earlier, about the awkward conversation if you think you're being followed. Another thing I know I do when I think I'm being followed is change my walking pattern, whether it's crossing the road or walking in a way that I think might be a little erratic, so I can see if the person's actually trying to follow me. At 4:15 and 3 seconds, a car appears heading the same direction, and an unidentified woman comes seconds after. A couple follows about 30 seconds after that, and the couple came forward. The man in black and the woman never have. 4 total people show up around this area. 2 come forward and talk to the police, 2 being one of the women, and the man in black never come forward. And the couple say that they saw nothing of interest at 4:15 a.m.
And it's hard to say.
Again, I mean, it's the middle of the night. Remember, it's raining. You're pretty focused probably on where you're going if it's raining and gusty in the middle of the night, and you never know what's going to be important later on. So it doesn't surprise me, especially if they willingly came forward, that they saw nothing of interest.
And I just want to note, this case, incredibly famous in Ireland. It is hard to believe that anyone did not hear about this case. But of course, there are people who didn't. That's the problem with this kind of stuff. You assume if nobody came forward, well, maybe they had something to do with it. They must have been nefarious, that they're keeping their involvement a secret. But it's just, look, if something happens, I don't care how well it's covered. Unless it's OJ, there are plenty of people who don't know about it. Talk about Delphi sometimes in Indiana, and people are like, how are they ever going to have a jury that's not biased in Delphi? There are plenty of people in Indiana who know nothing about Delphi, who've never even heard about it. And I feel like the same thing is probably true of Dublin. So the police, they wanted to know who was in that car. They wanted to know who the woman was, and they wanted to know who the men in black were. And you would think if you were one of those people and you heard that story, you'd know it was you. It's 4:15 in the morning on a rainy, windy night. There aren't that many people out there. It's kind of remarkable at that time in the morning on this kind of night that many people and a car are seen in this video. But the only people who come forward are the couple. The man in black never does. The woman never does, even though the woman is right on the man in black's tail. I mean, she is very close behind him. She's closer behind him than the man in black is to Trevor, for instance. And then you have this car come by. It's interesting the couple doesn't see anything because they're only about 30 seconds afterwards. And one of the theories, and as we talk about theories, is that someone grabbed Trevor and threw him into a car. If that happened in this circumstance, it had to have happened almost immediately after this. You would almost have to believe that the woman was involved. The man in black and the woman, the man in black grabbed Trevor. The woman throws open the door of this car. They throw Trevor in the back. They jump in and they take off. And 30 seconds later, this couple walks by and they don't see anything. You almost have to believe that that's what happened. It's also interesting that CCTV footage, like I said, Trevor's family, I mean, they are scouring the area. They're pulling everything, and yet no other CCTV cameras, of which there are many, and were many in Dublin, even at the time. Now there are even more, but even at the time, there were a lot. None of them catch Trevor after this point, and that is something that makes you wonder about what happened.
And in fact, Trevor's never seen again after that 4:15. We've been following the time by the second, as you've heard, for the last couple of hours. But that is it. That's all we have. The next morning is a work day at 9 a.m. Trevor doesn't show up for work, but given the raucous party the previous night, no one's surprised and no one thinks anything of his absence.
I can't believe anybody showed up at work at 9 o'clock the next morning.
I can't believe they had work. Usually these parties, if they're going to go till 2:30 a.m., it's going to be like a Friday. But nevertheless, you know, a lot of people left the party at the same time, around 2:30, coming back to work in 6.5, 7 hours. If you don't show up, I wouldn't be surprised. And that's exactly what happened. Trevor doesn't show up. No one thinks anything of it. It wasn't until Monday that anyone realized Trevor was missing.
And this is another one of those examples of the things that have to happen. So Trevor had two roommates that he lived with, two women that he lived with, but both of them were out of town that weekend. If either one of them had been there, they would have known that Trevor never came home. But they didn't know that. And because the next day was right after the party, normally if you don't show up for work, someone's going to think something of it. But nobody did. And so a full 72 hours is going to pass before anyone realizes there's a problem. It's not going to be till Monday. And by that time, you're going to lose a lot of evidence. You're going to lose a lot of time. And wouldn't you know it, it's not just that. It's not just that keeps us from having basically any evidence other than what we've already discussed, any evidence of what might have happened that day. And if you want to blame somebody for that, blame Bill Clinton. President of the United States, still president of the United States in 2000, if only for a few more days. Bill Clinton is visiting Ireland. Bill Clinton is a son of Ireland. He loves Ireland. We're going to talk more about his relationship to Ireland later. But he is going to visit Ireland on his last trip as president of the United States. And sure enough, he's going to Dublin. And what happens when the president of the United States goes and visits somewhere? Well, the Secret Service shows up a week ahead of time, and they scour the area. And they're checking in, every possible place, the manholes and in the dumpsters, and they're throwing stuff away, and they're making sure there's nowhere anybody could hide. And basically, they scour this area, they search everything, which you might think is good. Oh, they're searching everything, so maybe they'll find some evidence. They're not looking for evidence. What they're probably doing is destroying evidence. If, for instance, let's say they found an oversized umbrella with Bank of Ireland asset management management company on it. Hey, maybe one that Trevor had that night. What happens when they find an umbrella laying around on the street? They're going to take that and throw it away because you never know. It might be there might be a gun in that umbrella or something. They're going to get rid of it. So they're scouring the area, basically destroying everything that might lead us to what happened to Trevor. Now, it's certainly the case on the good side of this. They didn't find Trevor's body. They didn't find him in one of those dumpsters. They didn't find him stuffed down a manhole. They didn't find any indication of him, but the problem is they weren't really looking for him. And to the extent that people say things like, nothing was ever found of Trevor's, none of his clothes, not his cell phone, not his umbrella, it's possible that some Secret Service agent is retired in Wisconsin right now eating cheese, and while he was there, he found the umbrella and threw it away and never even realized how important that was, which is another reason we like to do this podcast, because you never know. That cheese-eating Secret Service agent in Wisconsin, maybe he's listening to this podcast right now and he remembers finding that giant umbrella. But these are the things people point to. There was no evidence of Trevor ever found, so this must have been something nefarious. But it's possible that evidence was just thrown away. So this is like a huge wrench in this investigation. Right as it's getting going, all of this is possibly being lost. So those of you who don't like Bill Clinton, you can blame him for the possibility that evidence was destroyed in this case, even though probably not Bill Clinton's fault. But it's hard to say. It's just hard to be definitive about anything in this case, particularly about the lack of evidence when you know that was going on in Dublin just a few days after Trevor disappeared.
Like, oh my goodness, what about all these events? Of course, like, when does the President of the United States come to Ireland? Of course, it's right after Trevor goes missing and all of this evidence, potential evidence, would be destroyed. But you do make a really good point. I do think they would have found probably a body if Trevor's body were around, and they didn't. So this is a true disappearance case so far.
Yeah, and that's important because that's another thing people will often say is, if you go back to the Brian Schaefer case in Ohio at the Ugly Tuna Saloon, one thing people suggest, and I guess people do this, though this seems, I've never been drunk enough to do this, but people will often say, well, people get really drunk and they'll climb into a dumpster to rest before they go home. And so maybe he climbed into a dumpster and then the dump truck came by and he was crushed and then he was taken to landfill and they never found him, right? Or maybe someone killed him and threw his body into the dumpster. And people say the same thing about Trevor. Well, the trash would have had to run pretty fast because this is one of the things they would have searched. So if you think that happened, it had to be a fast thing. It was a close run thing because the Secret Service people, the security people from Ireland, they would have been looking into those places. So as you said, in one way, this seems to limit some of the possibilities. In the other ways, some of the things we're going to point to as reasons maybe we don't think certain things happened. You always have to keep this in the back of your mind because this might be the explanation for why we aren't seeing the evidence that we think we should see. And that's about it, guys. You talk about this case and not being followed that often, there's not a lot of evidence. We have this video, and that's about it. We don't have much more about Trevor. His sister would call him several times over that weekend. He would never answer, and she would say the phone rang, which has led some people to believe that means the phone was still intact somewhere. We know from covering cases that is so hard to say. The notion that a phone automatically goes to voicemail when it's out of commission, maybe.
It doesn't always. It depends on your service,
It doesn't
honestly.
always. It really does. So we can't say that for certain, but it is something that was happening. She was trying to reach Trevor. She never got in touch with him. One thing I do think that indicates, there's some people that wonder if maybe he made it back to his apartment and then was killed later. There's no indication he ever made it back to his apartment. That umbrella wasn't there. Nobody ever spoke to him. Most likely, Trevor was, whatever happened to him, he was spirited away that night as he was walking back home.
Especially because he never shows up on another camera. And so that, we of course don't have full coverage of the entire city, but based on the number of CCTV cameras in this area, if he made it all the way home, we probably would have seen him on another camera.
I think that's right. And I mentioned Brian Schaefer earlier. This is kind of a similar case in some ways to Brian Schaefer. That's always been the thing about Brian Schaefer that leaves me scratching my head. I know there are other ways to get out of that bar, but there were lots of cameras in that area that should have caught him. If he's walking through the area, if he's heading home, there are cameras that should have caught him, and none of them did. It's the same thing here. No cameras caught him. it's hard to believe that Trevor, and if you see him on the CCTV, I mean, we don't think he's that drunk, but he's walking like a drunk person does. He would not be able to walk the line if he had been driving and somebody gave him a sobriety test. I mean, he's like weaving back and forth. So he's not avoiding cameras. If there was a camera where he walked, he would have been caught on it, and he wasn't. So I don't think he ever made it home. I think this crime happened that night, or whatever, whether it was a crime or not, it happened that night. And that's pretty much all the evidence we have to go on. And from that evidence, we're going to talk about theories next time. There are a ton of them that all have their flaws. And spoiler alert, I have my own conspiracy theory. I have my own conspiracy theory that I've never seen anyone suggest before. So that's going to take quite a while because it is very convoluted. It's the kind of, like every conspiracy theory, there's so much going on in it that I don't know that anyone's going to believe it. But I have a conspiracy theory, and I'm looking forward to hearing you guys poke holes in my conspiracy theory. So we're going to go through sort of the mainstream theories, and then we're going to talk about my conspiracy theory.
And you guys are going to want to hear this. The whole conspiracy theory might be its own episode, and it's worth listening to, actually.
I've actually thought about that. Can I do the whole conspiracy theory in less than an episode? I'm not sure.
I don't think you can.
There's a lot. Now, fortunately, there's a lot of other theories to talk about. So if this goes 3 episodes because I have to talk about my conspiracy theory for an entire episode, that's fine. That's fine. That's what we'll be talking about.
It's a worthy conspiracy theory, Brett. It is a worthy one.
Thank you, Alice. I'm glad you think it's not entirely insane.
No, it's kind of insane. But y'all should. I hope we've whetted your appetite because you definitely want to hear this.
Yes, you definitely are, not because it's crazy, which is what Alice seems to be implying, because it's very likely and probable. Anyway, well, we're interested to hear what you guys think about this case. We'd love to hear from folks who live in Ireland, who may have some familiarity with this, who can tell us all the things we got wrong, all the things we mispronounced, all the mistakes we've made about lovely Dublin. And we can't wait to hear your invitations for us to join you in Ireland and talk about this case in person over a pint of Guinness. If you guys want to reach out to us, prosecutorspod@gmail.com, @prosecutorspod for all your social media. Hello to those of you watching this on YouTube and seeing the video of the man in black running on loop, which is probably what you're looking at. And as always, thank you to those of you on Patreon who are listening early and ad-free to this episode. We appreciate you so much, and we always look forward to your thoughts and comments. I do want to say one other thing. And those of you who don't know, if you don't know that Cheryl McCollum has her own podcast, Zone 7, you got to check it out. It's amazing. I can't tell you how often we hear that Cheryl McCollum's episode with us is the best episode we ever did. I mean, it's probably true.
It's true.
Frankly.
She is the best.
It's true. I can't really deny it. Well, now she has her own podcast. So forget listening to us. You can listen to Cheryl McCollum, the expert, and I promise you it's going to be great. So check out Zone 7. You will not be disappointed, I promise. Well, Alice, before we sign off, is there anything else you want to add?
Oh, my goodness, y'all. Watch the videos if you haven't already done so. Think about this timeline. Hold it in your brain because there is so much more to discuss about this mind-boggling case, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
And I hope if you're in Ireland and you were in Dublin at the time and for some reason you never heard of this case, maybe you are the man in black or the lady behind the man in black. Reach out to us. Reach out to the Dublin police, whoever you need to. This is a story that continues to resonate in Ireland. And Trevor's family continues to look for answers, and if we can give that to them, that would be amazing. Well, we'll be back next week with theories. But until then, I'm Brett.
And I'm Alice.
And we are the prosecutors. Do you feel better today?
I do. Thank you.
If.
I don't know what that means, though. How do you even spell that?
If. I don't know.
AOIFE?
If. No, it's no.
Is it
It's like, no, it's very different from that.
Okay.
If. It's, That's how I spelled it here, but it's actually AOIBH,
Whoa.
if you believe it.
No, cannot. Okay.
No, I'll put my name again. So we'll just play that by ear.
Do you want me to
anyways.
come in at 7 p.m. and then you can go?
You can.
I'll come in.
You can come in at 7. You're gonna come in at 7.
Yeah. There we go.
7's so far away.
I can do 4.
7.
I'll do 4:50.
Oh, no. 7 works.
Yeah,
7 works.
okay.
7 works. Let me finish up.
See what's streaming free all month long during Amplify AAPI Voices on PlutoTV. Watch shows like Kim's Convenience with Simu Liu and amazing movies like Meet the Patels and Jason Momoa in Braven. Plus, PlutoTV has hundreds of channels with thousands more movies and TV shows available on live and on demand. Download PlutoTV on all your favorite devices for free. PlutoTV. Stream now, pay never.
Are you looking for a new job or want a career change? Look no further than Monster.com. Need a little help standing out? Our expert resume writing services will make sure you shine. Want to brush up on your interview skills? Engage with our AI interview prep tool. Want some advice on negotiating your new salary? Visit our salary tools and extensive library of career advice articles, and you'll have all the tips and tricks you'll need to succeed. Visit Monster.com today and take the first step towards your career. Monster.com. Find your right job fit.